In this video, we'll be taking a closer look at each of Maokai's abilities, exploring the subtle details that can make a huge impact on your support gameplay. Despite Maokai's easy-to-grasp mechanics, mastering the nuances of his kit is the key to transforming yourself from a good to a great player. If you're able to incorporate all of these important tips and tricks that I'm about to reveal, I guarantee that your Maokai support skills will reach a level of gameplay you never thought was possible. Let's quickly review the names of Maokai's abilities. Maokai's passive is Sap Magic. Maokai's Q ability is Bramble Smash. Maokai's W ability is Twisted Advance. Maokai's E ability is Sapling Toss. And Maokai's ultimate ability is Nature's Grasp. In general, you will want to level up your abilities in this priority: R, Q, W, E. First, let's talk about Maokai's passive, Sap Magic. This passive involves his auto attack, which will periodically heal him between 4 to 12% of his maximum health. It's very important to try and proc this passive as much as possible, since Maokai doesn't have any natural tanking stats or shields as a tank support. Instead, he relies on Sap Magic to keep him topped up in health for both the laning phase and in team fights. In the laning phase, since Maokai has a relatively short threat range, it's very easy for him to get outpoked in lane. You will either want to remain hidden in a bush or simply position yourself far enough away from the enemy to not get poked. It's very important to keep a close eye on your passive cooldown to see when you can safely auto a minion to gain some HP back. The cooldown for this passive starts at around 30 seconds, meaning you essentially have a mini potion every 30 seconds in lane. This may not seem like a lot, but every bit of healing counts during the laning phase, and it will certainly help you sustain in lane as a tank support. Now, you may be tempted to try and use your passive every time Sap Magic is on cooldown, but if the enemy is pressuring too heavily or there are no available minions to auto attack, simply wait for a safer lane state to proc your passive. The one important factor regarding Sap Magic's cooldown is that it can actually be reduced by 4 seconds given the following 3 scenarios. Every time you cast an ability, every time a champion hits you with an ability, and every time your sapling hits an enemy champion or an epic monster. You can take advantage of this information by trying your best to cast abilities in lane only after you've procced Sap Magic. This min-maxing of Sap Magic might seem trivial, but having an additional heal 4 seconds earlier is what separates a good Maokai support from a great Maokai support. This passive is also reduced by 1.5 seconds if you are autoed by a large or epic monster, but that information is more relevant for jungle Maokais. By the time it's mid-game, you will likely have leveled up your Q ability and purchased enough cooldown reduction such that you can activate Sap Magic a lot more frequently. Maokai will be healing an insane amount as long as you cycle your abilities while also absorbing abilities from the enemy team. In team fights, try to auto attack every time your passive is up to ensure you stay as healthy as possible. At level 11, the cooldown of Sap Magic will be about 24 seconds, meaning you only need to cast abilities or be hit by an ability about 5 times before using Sap Magic again. Practically speaking, in team fights, it can only take about 5 to 10 seconds before you can heal a significant amount with Sap Magic. This is why it's very important to keep the mindset that if you can't escape a hectic team fight, don't try to just run away. Keep on fighting by spamming your spells and auto attacks, and you may be surprised as to how long you can survive. In later stages of the game, Sap Magic's healing can translate to roughly 350 health, which would require a maximum health of over 3500 HP. This HP amount may seem difficult for a support to reach, but it is very possible even with a full support build, including cheap tank items such as Anathema's Chains, Locket of the Iron Solari, Knight's Vow, or Abyssal Mask. Using Sap Magic essentially means that you are gaining a Giant's Belt worth of HP, a 900 gold value for every auto attack. A crucial mentality you want to have as Maokai support is that for every auto attack that you absorb, it means one less enemy auto against your carries. Maokai's Q, Bramble Smash, is his main ability you will want to level in-game and spam in team fights. It is super low cooldown, and by level 9 you will basically be able to spam it every 4 seconds. Bramble Smash's range isn't very large, but there are some slight nuances with this ability that you must understand to utilize Maokai's Q to its fullest extent. There are 2 types of CC that Bramble Smash can apply. First, if the target is adjacent to Maokai, they will be stunned for 0.5 seconds and be considered knocked up. This knock up can be used to proc things like Yasuo's ultimate or Samira's passive. Second, if the unit is slightly farther away from Maokai, Bramble Smash will instead slow the enemy unit 99% for 0.25 seconds. Although it is difficult to miss this ability since Maokai will be usually adjacent to enemy champions anyways, you still need to be careful of which direction you knock up a target. A bad Q can sometimes help the enemy team reposition in teamfights that are actually more favorable for them. Although it won't seem like a large amount of CC, Bramble Smash will provide enough CC to help you stick to the target and help your teammates finish off the kill. Depending on how important the kill is, you may even want to flash in front of the target trying to escape and knock them back into your team. The most important aspect of Bramble Smash, as stated previously, is its low cooldown. It does a relatively small amount of damage as a support player, but it can be spammed very often in order to continually reduce the cooldown on Maokai's passive, Sap Magic. Here are a few Maokai Q tips to use Bramble Smash most effectively. Tip number 1. In lane, you can use Q to help thin the wave. It is useful to help slightly push the wave if you need priority on the wave to either reach the next level a little faster, or manipulate the wave state in favor of your ADC. Tip number 2. Bramble Smash can be used to cancel dashes such as from a Rakan W or a Lucian E if timed correctly. Tip number 3. When laning with ADCs that have traps such as Caitlyn or Jinx, try to use your Q to direct the enemy champion into a rooted position. Maokai's W ability is called Twisted Advance. This ability can be used as an easy point and click engage tool that can lock up an enemy carry from kiting your team. Your most basic combo with Q is that you want to try and use Twisted Advance, your W ability, to a key target before throwing out Bramble Smash. W, then Q. It's pretty much impossible to miss as long as you are in range of your target. As you upgrade this skill, the root duration increases from 1 to 1.4 seconds and the base cooldown of this ability decreases from 13 to 9 seconds. In mid-game teamfights, you should be able to use this ability every 7.5 seconds. Although I started out this video with the general ordering level of R, Q, W, E, I usually start my first skill upgrade point on W. This is because it provides enough lane pressure at level 1 for the enemy not to harass me without fear. I don't necessarily have to use W at level 1, but simply having the threat is crucial to maintain lane presence. If I'm able to hit level 2 on the second wave, I immediately will try to engage with the WQ to either chunk out the enemy team significantly or at least burn a flash. Remember that you don't want to W onto a target who can dash backwards like Pyke or Ezreal at level 2, since they can easily dash back into their own turret range, resulting in catastrophe. Alternatively, if I want to play a more defensive level 1, I will start by leveling Q first and simply use it as a disengage tool, usually meant against tank supports like Nautilus or Leona. Understanding when to Twisted Advance in the early laning phase is a crucial aspect of playing Maokai support. You can learn more about all the different matchups in the early game in my Maokai guide from a previous video here. Twisted Advance has a very short range for a CC ability, so it can be difficult to use since enemies can easily position away from you. This is why movement speed is such a crucial stat on Maokai, since it is really the only way for you to catch up with an enemy unit before rooting them. In addition to having superior movement speed, it can also be helpful to have some initial CC applied on the enemy first. Try slowing the enemy team with a sapling or with the help of your ADC before going for a root. It's not uncommon that you will have to use both Flash and Twisted Advance together in order to lock onto a target. If you do decide to Flash W, make sure your teammates can follow up, since you can be targeted if you are too far away from your team. Use W as your engage tool if you are certain that your team can follow up. Maokai is not a great solo tank support, so make sure you have some buddies around you to deal damage. It's important to remember that once Twisted Advance is used, the enemy team will know you lack a critical CC ability, meaning they can re-engage on you or a teammate if there's a clear opening. This is why I generally want to avoid using this ability on a tank to start a teamfight, since it is difficult to burst the tank and the enemy carries will know they are free to attack you. Be very cognizant of who you want to root on and think carefully as to whether it's more important to engage or disengage given the status of a teamfight. In the middle of a teamfight though, if you notice you're about to die, feel free to use this W ability on any unit. This is because it provides you a brief moment of untargetability, and in those situations, you'd rather stay alive than prioritize where your W ability needs to land. To further elaborate on Maokai's untargetability, Your W ability can be used to avoid unique abilities if timed correctly. For example, you can escape Vagr's cage if you are able to Twisted Advance onto a minion outside the CC range. You can also avoid key skill shots like RA Charm or Twisted Fate's gold card as well. There are a lot of outplay moments you can use if you time your Twisted Advance properly. Although Maokai is often seen as a great engager type of support, he can also use Twisted Advance as an extremely useful peel tool. Stick to your fed carry as close as possible if there is a fed enemy assassin or bruiser. If the enemy tries to jump on your carry, immediately root that target and knock the enemy away to make sure your carry stays alive. Maokai's E ability, Sapling Toss, is one of Maokai's signature abilities since it provides your team with an incredible amount of map control. Saplings will last about 30 seconds on the map, meaning you have a mini ward in key bushes and choke points to help secure objectives. Saplings are a great way to also scout scary bushes to reduce any surprise attack from the enemy team. The mana cost for saplings is not too substantial, but you do have to be somewhat thoughtful with your sapling placement. Rather than spamming your saplings off cooldown and wasting your mana pool, consider placing them in areas that require the most map control. Use saplings to reveal unwarded bushes and to control certain quadrants of the map. The objective control you get from saplings is unparalleled from any support, and you can easily track the position of the enemy team based on where you've placed your sneaky saplings. Since this E ability is the last you will max, it will never really cost more than 45 mana throughout most of the game. When a sapling is placed in the open, it will only last 30 seconds and slow enemies for 45% for 2 seconds. However, when a sapling is placed in a bush, it becomes a bit more complex. Here are some rules to remember for bush saplings. Rule number 1. Bush saplings deal double the damage to affected targets over 3 bursts. Rule number 2. Bush saplings last longer and slows longer based on Maokai's bonus health. It is typical for a bush sapling to last an additional 30 seconds in the mid-game based on your Maokai's typical build path. The slow is also about 10% more effective based on your bonus health. This is another reason as to why building health on Maokai is so useful. Rule number 3. Bush saplings reveal enemies once tagged, making them act as a mini farsight ward, helping your teammates evaluate where the enemy position is. This can be very useful to track junglers or unsuspecting enemy flanks before teamfights. One lesser known fact about saplings is that any time it applies damage to a champion, its effect actually reduces Maokai's Sap Magic passive by an additional 4 seconds. Although it is relatively easy to use Sapling Toss in a game, there are many key spots you can throw your saplings to advance your vision or secure map control most effectively. I'll be releasing a future video on all the important spots to throw your saplings based on the latest map changes in Season 14, so make sure to subscribe to stay up to date for when that content is released. But for now, here are 3 general areas of where you want to place your saplings. In the laning phase, make sure you maintain vision of the tri-bushes if you don't have an available ward to protect you from jungle ganks. You can extend your vision range further than a typical support since your E-sapling range is farther than your ward range. When securing dragons in the Baron, as long as you keep spamming your saplings in surrounding bushes, it puts immense pressure on the enemy from advancing further, thus preventing the chance of an objective steal. The most important tip I want you to remember is to use saplings in unwarded bushes before walking into Fog of War. When advancing vision, simply waiting a few extra seconds for your E cooldown to refresh can be the difference between life or death. Lastly, we have Maokai's ultimate ability, Nature's Grasp. This is an amazing tool to catch enemies from escaping an ensuing teamfight. This ultimate at first glance seems extremely slow and difficult to use effectively, but it's actually not that complicated if you have the right mindset. The speed of the ultimate starts at 100 ms, but will ramp up to 700 ms 2 seconds after cast, and up to 750 ms after 3 seconds. The width of the ultimate is also extremely wide and spans nearly the entire river width. You can estimate the target range using the in-game indicator while holding the shift button. The route duration of this ability scales with the distance traveled between 0.8 to 2.6 seconds. Once the ultimate has traveled over 1,000 units, all units will be routed for a maximum of 2.6 seconds. A little unknown tip about Nature's Grasp is that as long as you are able to hit one enemy champion, you will gain 40% movement speed at level 6 and 50% movement speed at level 11, decaying over 2 seconds. As a support, you probably won't reach level 16 in a majority of your games, but a 50% movement speed buff is still a significant amount as it allows you to continually find other targets to chase and lock down. Unlike other long-range CC abilities like Seraphine ult, the enemy can line up one behind another to avoid the root, since only the first enemy hit in the ultimate's path will be rooted. But not to worry, since having the enemy lined up like this can still immensely ruin their overall teamfight positioning. There are two general playstyles you will want to use with Nature's Grasp, and it is dependent on whether you want to play reactively or proactively. Neither of these playstyles are better than the other, as it really depends more on the unique game state. Let's go over some of these in-game scenarios. The more reactive method is to use MAOKAI'S ultimate as a follow-up engage tool. Since Nature's Grasp is quite slow to begin with, it can be difficult to catch faraway enemies who can simply run away if they aren't initially CC'd. You can use Nature's Grasp as a follow-up ability after you've engaged an unsuspecting enemy with your Twisted Advance, your W ability. Although the additional CC time will only be about 1 second of extra root time, it will still allow your team to quickly burst through the squishy target. Furthermore, your ultimate will also prevent the enemy team from trying to help since they will be subsequently rooted from the initial engagement. The same reactive playstyle can be used as a close-up disengage tool. If you have a key carry you want to protect, you can always use a Twisted Advance to root an incoming assassin and then follow up with your ultimate to apply additional CC. Alternatively, if you see that one of your allies has CC'd a key target to start a teamfight, you can use Nature's Grasp as a follow-up tool. This will apply additional CC from far away while deterring their allies from reacting appropriately. Since the ultimate will be cast from further away, the time of CC will be even longer, up to 2.6 seconds. Upon rooting an enemy with your ultimate, the movement speed buff will help you catch up to your ally, ensuring a winning teamfight. In cases where you've already lost a teamfight, you can use Nature's Grasp to zone out the enemy from continually hunting down your team. I don't always recommend using MAOKAI'S ultimate as a faraway disengage tool, since using it is a costly cooldown. But occasionally, in order to cut your losses, running away from a lost teamfight is your team's best decision. The more proactive method to use Nature's Grasp requires a bit more intuition. What I mean by this is that you have to be able to predict the near future. By visualizing where and when a teamfight is about to occur, you can angle the ultimate from Fog of War to catch unsuspecting enemies and thus start a favorable teamfight. By the time your ultimate reaches the teamfight, the enemy will either have to scatter, which ruins their teamfight positioning, or more ideally, they will be rooted for 2.5 seconds based on the travel distance of your roots. As long as the ultimate has traveled at least 2 seconds, the speed of MAOKAI'S branches will be over 700 movement speed, making it extremely difficult to disengage from. To use Nature's Grasp most effectively with the proactive method, you want to look for engage angles that are most often coming from Fog of War. Hiding where and when you cast your ultimate makes it extremely confusing for the enemy to react appropriately. Really try to visualize whether or not the ultimate ability can actually be effective in catching enemies. I've used this ultimate many times to win game-changing Baron or Dragon teamfights, as being trapped near these two pits for over 2.5 seconds is certainly a deathly experience. Overall, to use MAOKAI'S ultimate ability to its fullest potential, the most important concept to keep in mind is to ensure your team can actually follow up. MAOKAI support in general doesn't do that much damage on his own, but is instead meant to be an unkillable tank that can survive extended teamfights given the support of his team's damage. There's no point in catching the enemy team if your allies aren't able to follow up. Ape strong together. Although I've made a claim that this video teaches you everything you need to know about MAOKAI'S abilities, there are still probably a few secret tips and tricks I may have missed. Therefore, if you have any additional insights on his abilities, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this content, make sure to hit that like button and consider hitting that subscribe button too. It really does help. Thank you so much for watching this video on MAOKAI'S abilities. Feel free to let me know what other MAOKAI support topics you'd like to see in my future videos.